So if everyone can sign in with their name, email what their profession is, and their mood coming in today or tonight as a way to
Okay, you want me to
connect.
start?
Yeah, just if you want to type it in.
I'll
We're,
type it
we're
in.
we're not gonna go around the room, but we thought this was a way to connect people. All right. And while you're doing that, I'm gonna, I'm gonna put my mood too.
Oh, this is nice. Then I can see people and a little bit of background and what your mood state is.
So, Krause Therapy is a small private practice, and every month I like to bring in new speakers. We're a therapy practice with different clinicians from different backgrounds, specializing um, in couples work, but also individual work. We don't work with children per se, but we're always into looking at new techniques and really what is on the minds of our clients. So I try to make these sessions relevant and bringing in speakers. They're always open as well to other support practitioners and just people of interest. I like to create that collaborative space. So tonight I thought my sister could come in and talk about what she is an expert in. And so I'm going to introduce her and then she will start her presentation with you all on this virtual space. Okay. So Caitlin Krause, she's an experienced designer, author, keynote speaker, and educator. She founded the consultancy of MindWise. She teaches about well-being and technology at Stanford University. She's authored 6 books, and 3 of them of note are Designing Wonder, Mindful by Design, and Digital Well-being. Digital Well-being, the other part of the title is Empowering Connection with Wonder and Imagination in the Age of AI. Caitlin has advised organizations such as LinkedIn, Google, TED, and the US State Department. And now she may be advising our practice in some way and all of you. She creates human-centered experiences mediated by technology, fusing creativity, mindfulness, uh, EI for thriving full life, for thriving full life. So with that, passing it on to Caitlin tonight. Happy.
Thank you, Emily. Oh, wow. It's so good to be here. I feel like this is, when I hear my bio, I always want to kind of nod like, yes, yes, I've done this. Yes. It's kind of like this is your life. And it doesn't mean anything if you're not sharing it with other humans. So I actually really love um, preferably smaller sessions where you get to really see people communicate, be face to face. Emily's right. I love to write. I've written a lot of books, and I'm always imagining when I'm writing, who am I writing for? Or who's going to pick up that book like it's got some story in it that's meaningful and then take something down from it that hopefully makes their life better and reaches other people. Um, yeah, and I don't know about you, but I feel like we need more bounce and it's been heavy. So if anyone came to this session just feeling like, oh, things are hard, I want to acknowledge that because I always start um, with my own meditation on days that I do something social in a group, because I know there's nothing more valuable than your live time. I think time is how we measure life, but also our greatest commodity, like our attention. So that's my intention today. I wanted to start just naming that it's to make the most of your time. I brought a candle with me. So this is a special candle. I haven't lit it before. Um, it's one of my favorite smells. That's eucalyptus. So I'm going to light it for us tonight and have the session begin. Yeah, for us to just really come together and do this for ourselves, because a lot of us are meeting the needs of other people. So hopefully this time is something that puts more energy back in your wellspring. Um, yeah, so it's the beginning. And in the beginning, along with the idea of scent and smell, I've named that I love eucalyptus. And I wanted to just quickly, as an icebreaker, go also around the room and see if people are comfortable unmuting themselves. And if not, you can pass. But I wanted to invite us just to share our first name and some kind of sensory thing that makes you come alive. So whether it's some sound you like or some touch you enjoy, some flavor, some sight, I mentioned the smell of eucalyptus, and I was also taking a bike ride this morning and happened to smell petrichor, which is the smell of the asphalt after a heavy rain. Like the road actually smells like something. It mostly happens in the summer. I'm lucky to live in California where it's a little bit warmer right now. So I was thinking, wow, part of my research with digital well-being is about our animal body coming alive in the midst of this kind of digital media that can kind of distract us and take away our sensory experience. Like, how do we bring the senses back? So for me, your story does not have to be long. You can just name your name and something that you love, whether it's a food, a scent, something you love to look at. Yeah, but I'd love to hear what makes you come alive, what brings you back to that kind of awe state through what you encounter. And since I already love Show's background, I'm going to pass it to Show first if you're willing to unmute, and then you can pass it to somebody else in the room when you're done. Um, yeah, so welcome.
Hi, um, my name is Show, and a sensory thing that is always fascinating to me is like aquamarine or turquoise waters because we don't have that in New England. So whenever I'm somewhere else and I see that, I'm like, I can't stop looking at it. It's like it's so amazing. That's got to be it for me. I'll
Hi,
pass it to Van Vien.
welcome.
You. I'm Van Bien, and I think it's funny because I was just teaching the, like, mindfulness like literally like an hour ago with the five senses. But I think for me, what really brings me a ton of joy is like tactile. So I don't know if you can see behind. So I'm in my office, but behind me there's framed handmade cards, and they sort of have it's made out of ribbon, it's made of like different kinds of laces and like embellished paper and I just love all of that texture. I love like playing with things like that, like art stuff. So just kind of like putting things together, but I really love sort of like the feel of all those different kinds of material. So I will pass it on to Roxanne.
Thank you. I always like to look at people's backgrounds. So thank you for bringing that beautiful artwork to our attention. That's amazing. I love it. Um, just briefly, I love sound. I love sounds. I love listening to nature sounds. But this year, and actually the end of last year, I started taking violin lessons. And that is just so soothing to me and so peaceful. Even if I hit a wrong note, I'm still in joy. I'm still in the joy of the moment because I have the good fortune to be able to take lessons as an adult and really have the fears of a new instrument, almost like a new beginning, but also the pure joy of knowing that my intention is I'm doing it for my own self, for my own well-being. And I've been asked to participate in a band. So I'm like, I'm pretty new at it, but my teacher thinks I'm pretty good. And thank you. I'll pass it to Jeff.
Um, I like the smell of fresh cut grass immediately after it's been cut by a gas mower.
Mm, love that.
And I will pass it. Is it Rushi? Rushi?
Yeah, it's Ruchi. But she may, yeah, I'm not sure if she's jumping on.
And how about Jarek?
Welcome, Yarek. Yes, thank you.
Oh, sorry, my microphone didn't work. It's 7 o'clock in the morning here, so I like the noise of kids getting ready for school. So that's the reason why I kind of switched off the video and probably will keep the microphone switched off as well. Well, I guess what I like meeting interesting people online at 7 o'clock in the morning, and it's very inspiring experience, and looking forward to the rest of the presentation and discussions.
Thank you. Thank you for being here too. Appreciate it. So I'm gonna pass it over to Emily.
So I feel like I need to piggyback on what other people are saying, but there's so many things that can't come to mind when people are saying different things. I like the murmuring when you wake up in the other room, kind of that the feeling of people gathering, having coffee. When I was younger, like that's such a nice sound. I like the smell of leaves in the fall when they're like decaying and you're hiking. I love that smell. I love fall in particular for that. And I like soft things. I know we were only supposed to do one maybe, but my son has a baby blanket. It's very soft, but then on the edges it's so silky, and I just love that soft with the silky is really pleasing.
Wow. Thanks, Em. Um, I think as we fold other people in, we might welcome them and ask them to join us. And if anyone drops into this session, we'll know that we kind of started this exercise reminding ourselves of those simple things, and how to build them into our life. Because part of today, in what I'm about to share and what I've been doing, like I said, with the digital, is about encouraging my physical self to show up and to nourish and to sometimes tune into what I need in a really primal animal way. And I like that all of you, kind of yes and played the game. You could have passed it, but you chose to share. And I think it was Van Vian mentioning that an hour ago you'd done a mindfulness activity, using the five senses. And I keep thinking about our sensory experience in this age of AI as machines are becoming, more and more human-like. It just seems kind of ironic that sometimes people are nudged to kind of become more machine-like. And it's like we think that's a good thing that we can automate. But our primal self really, is drawn back to understanding our senses and feeling connected. So just encouraging you to really give yourself credit for taking time each day to do what makes you come alive and to practice those little things. because that's really, thriving. As I'm going to share some slides here and then pause. And as I'm sharing, just encouraging you to think about, okay, what actually makes us thrive? And is it the big decisions, or is it sometimes those small moments where we really tune into our senses and think about our I've been looking more at what's known as embodiment and also somatic practices. Like, what does it make us feel like in our bodies as we're having this digital experience? It's not just from the neck up. So I know some of you, through being in experiences, whether it's in virtual reality or in physicality, yeah. So as I go, feel free to put things into the chat. If you have questions, we're going to answer questions. If things come up and they resonate, I love to look at the chat both in live time and later. And as Emily knows, I like to say disruptive and disruptible. Like you can interrupt me anytime. It's going to be all in flow. That's my company, Mindwise. The logo has two birds in the center. And the two birds are kind of reminding us that we're not alone, even if we're looking out with our wings outstretched, exploring the world. So I have a few things to share. I wanted to start, though, in addition to our senses, and just kind of remind us to feel our feet, like where we're at, where your body is right now, just to kind of get grounded and feel your feet. As I said, I'm excited for the session, and maybe that makes me talk faster, but I want to remind myself just to kind of place my feet against the floor, and think about how they've carried me throughout the day, and just kind of use this time to slow down, practice well-being. As we're talking about digital well-being, we don't disappear from our bodies. And if you want to take one deep breath in with me and an easy exhale out, again, just imagining that we're all in the same physical space together because our attention is here. And as you breathe in again, just giving some love back to the soles of your feet. As you exhale, see if you can wiggle your toes in your shoes. Get curious. Maybe feel your body showing up from the base of your feet to the tip of your head. Yeah. And I feel more present now as I'm sharing with you. I'm like, oh yeah, sometimes I just remind myself, feel my feet when I feel any kind of anxiety, like I can come back to myself. So a little bit about me before I get into some of the digital well-being descriptions that were in our session. I became really interested in the topics of technology and digital media through some of my love of art and photography. So I grew up loving cameras, loving photographs. And sometimes I could drop in, like this picture I took while I was traveling, and on the side of a lake, I just noticed the flowers. And I felt like I became a flower when I was taking the shot. Like I could just feel the light coming through it, sort of like a ballerina skirt. Like I could see the ripples of the fabric, and suddenly that light was kind of caressing my emotion. And the little threads of, I don't know if you call them hairs, but on the flower, on the stem, I could just see each individual piece. And for me, photography brought me closer to the environment, and it didn't divide me from it. I felt like I could disappear into nature. So I began thinking about meditation and mindfulness, sometimes through expression of art and expression, like technology's ability to bring us together with storytelling, with art forms, with other humans, and sometimes with nature. So as I got older, I ended up teaching overseas. I taught in the international school system in Belgium for 2 years, in Switzerland for a number of years. And I got a press pass to cover mostly film festivals. Like I would go around to film festivals, cover them first with my regular camera. Then I got what's shown here. I outlined it in the little star, but this is a 360 camera. It's a Samsung. I used to take pictures on the carpet and videos of people and then put them into a virtual space where the viewer could feel like they were surrounded. And it's really been interesting to me. I'm looking at show's background again with the Northern Lights, but how often we love to drop into nature or into some experience and feel like we show up and we're whole and we're both curious and playful. So I bring that up from a well-being perspective because it just felt to me like films are one example where you get to share an empathetic experience with somebody else and let them drop into that human understanding in a different way. So I've always been an artist and always really interested in the mind and in well-being and in people being able to both lose themselves in wonder and find themselves. Like, we don't want to disappear so that we feel lost, but if you're like me, you sometimes go into creative reverie, just kind of staring at the sky or looking at something beautiful and coming away with a new idea. So tonight, I'm kind of showing you some background because I wanted to give you almost like the B-side of the record of why I wrote this book, Digital Wellbeing, what I've learned through my teaching at Stanford and other places, and why I personally think that creativity and imagination is our secret superpower in this age of AI. Like, everybody has it. And some of us are, I think we're all kids in bigger bodies. We all want to be curious and playful and feel safe. So we're going to talk too about context and about your work that you're doing to support others and also how you're giving it back to yourself. So I have a lot of goals, and I know it's really up to us. Like, this session's for you. So underneath it, my intention is also to share about connection, ethics, wonder, resilience, and thriving, and to have you leave feeling like, maybe there was something new that you discovered. Okay, so this is an imagination exercise where you can put anything you want into the chat. But I was thinking about, like, what kind of world do we want? Because we're world building. We're all designers. Emily highlighted 3 books that I've written, and I notice, there's some hooks. Like, there are words that I go into. One of my first nonfiction books was Mindful by Design, and then I wrote Designing Wonder, and then I wrote Digital Wellbeing Through Wonder. So it's kind of, mindfulness, design. We're designers. We look at wonder in different ways. So right now, as you're designing and imagining the world you want to create, most people come to me and I'm teaching digital well-being and they think that I mean this, like, pretty binary. Like, they think I mean people are addicted to phones. Let's put phones away. And how many of you, and it's great because I would raise my hand too. How many of you thought that's one of the themes of digital well-being? Like, this, people are addicted. It's a problem, because there's a truth there. And maybe these students are all connecting and they're feeling very wonderful in this application. But if you look at their faces and their mood state, it doesn't always seem like, we're feeling nourished. So actually, the phone addiction and gaming addiction is part of what I research and teach about, and part of meeting this moment. And just naming the serious state right now, we haven't had higher rates of suicide than right now. We haven't had higher self-reported stress and anxiety, and Gen Z and Gen A are what I call in the book canaries in the coal mine. Like, I really think the signals, they're stepping up and sharing that things are not okay. So all of us are in this together, and I'm looking at how to both meet the loneliness crisis. And last week I was at a conference and I got to talk with Mo Gadat, he's written books like Scary Smart. He's involved in Google X, and I said to him, how do we maintain hope? And he said, it's about agency. Like we can do something. We can turn worlds that sometimes feel like this into worlds that feel like this. This is a picture I took while I was kayaking. I love kayaking. I love being on open lakes that reflect the light. And soulfully, I've built worlds like this. I've gone into virtual reality and built moon gardens and places that people can share collaboratively. So sometimes it's one-on-one, sometimes it's with others. Doesn't replace the natural world. But when we're looking at technology, it's my view that it's not the tech that's the enemy, it's the past uses of tech, some of the algorithms, some of the ways that we're prioritizing attention and retention of people's dopamine spikes. And we have some people here in the room who are experts in these areas. We have Yarek with children getting ready, but also doing things in therapy that are helping people's lives. So I'm naming that right here we have a collection of experts gathered here, and I've just named a few, but there's emotion underneath it. So it's not formulaic in my world. When I'm talking about digital well-being, I'm talking about changing a relationship with technology, both the relationship we have with what we expect tech to serve, and also the human to human relationship that's mediated by tech. Because I don't see that going away. I think people are more connected than ever in the world right now. And so it's part of the reframe of us as humans demanding better frameworks and better algorithms that actually prioritize things like curiosity. So pretty early on, I fell in love with lifelong learning and with a place at Harvard called Lifelong Kindergarten. And Seymour Papert had been one of the original people that then kind of passed these frameworks to Mitch Resnick. And some of the framework for it was that all experiences could be built on 4 P's: projects, passion, peers, and play. And so how are we designing experiences that are going to pique curiosity instead of making people feel like they're cookie cutter in a system? So this is all a little bit of context, just an introduction to how I ended up at Stanford. I ended up teaching there in the wellness department. I teach a course called Digital Wellbeing, and then recently wrote the book Digital Wellbeing. And I was invited to teach there because I'd been doing work in education, middle school, high school, and then also coupling that with world building in immersive environments. I have a background also in programming and computer design. So when I started to use mindfulness in new ways and go into some of the virtual reality design, I was leading these experiences in a different way, saying, okay, this is not about addictive algorithms. This is about humans being able to meet together around virtual campfires, and about people who are neurodivergent finding different ways to celebrate their diversity and share, say, a mood state in a color map. Or just going in, one of my jobs in California that caused me to look at moving out here was with a company called Limbics that at the time was doing some therapeutics for adolescents with behavioral change. They were using all kinds of different behavioral activation, and people that are, really into different cognitive-based therapy. They were looking at not having adolescents feel any shame or anxiety about technology, but looking at gaming structures that could bring people together. So I was helping with the design in that spin-off of the Stanford Virtual Human Interaction Lab. And then some of their statistics went into people who had opioid addiction, and just using immersive gaming and virtual reality caused a lower amount of recidivism than they had ever seen before. So just imagine some people in clinics were dropping out from receiving care, and they could sign themselves out. But when they were introduced to experiences in wellness that involved virtual reality, they ended up staying in. And I thought, wow, there's something about this technology that has the power to bring us into a different, like some people call it flow state, some people call it a lower attachment to a fixed identity. But that's a little more about my deeper dive. I really love therapeutics. Oh, and Jeff's going to make a wish. If you're still there, thank you, Jeff, for joining us. Yeah, and I really feel like there's a future in therapeutic applications that destigmatizes people both using technology in mindful ways and saying, my mental health is a priority and I'm on a road to find out more about myself in the process. So
there's a lot there. And I wanted to kind of pause if anyone wants to make a comment. Also, I want to acknowledge Monica just jumped in, part of our group. So just to say hello.
welcome.
But does anyone have any questions or thoughts?
No questions, but I really love everything you're saying about like the relationship to technology is the thing, and also just demanding better out of like the design of things and like the algorithms that are in place is something that I think uh, we need to bring more attention to, and I'm pretty passionate about that. So excited to see where you go with this.
Thank you, Sho. Yeah. Yeah, people can't get away with it anymore. I feel like I get super passionate because things have been exposed now. So you can't just say the people who are in charge have created some systems of the past can't just say, "Oh, well, we didn't know we had the best intentions." It's like, no, now we're starting to see some of what happened as Tristan Harris and Asa Raskin have said. They founded the Center for Humane Technology, and they said this is why social media 1.0 didn't work, because they were appealing to the base layer of the brainstem. And there's a quote by Charlie Munger that says, if you want to measure the outcomes, look at the incentives. And if the incentives were to get people giving likes and dislikes to social media systems, then they were going to be engaged for approval, which at all different ages, that's a gaming addiction that hooks us and leaves us wanting more instead of feeling like recognized. So thank you. I see you nodding, and I really appreciate it.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
I think about this so much and how it's affecting like in particular musicians and artists that are kind of in my community. So yeah, it's good stuff.
Mhm.
oh,
And
so
Roxanne raised her hand.
great.
I agree with all the above. Um, my mind wanders when you talk, and it's all good. It's good, the good mind wandering, because I'm curious about what you say and how to bring that into my own experiences that I'm having right now, and with the digital designing. And it just seems awkward sometimes in this manner, let me say, because we either call it an awesome experience or we call it an awful. So there's that, yeah. There has to be some mediation in the middle. So when we see young people with cell phones, parents are with cell phones, that's what young people model. I mean, how are we going to say that's awful when parents are modeling this to toddlers? When parents are giving, Emily, you're a young mom,
Yes.
Mhm.
I
and
was just thinking of
my
that.
daughter-in-laws are probably your age, and they're also,
Mm.
I don't approve as a mother-in-law. I do put my 2 cents in occasionally, and I don't use that phone when I have my grandchildren with me. But I use my tablet to engage them in more inspiring things like the weather, to be curious things. And I just use it, I think, in a different way, rather than a chat or a text message and constantly having a screen. So am I awfulizing that, or is that our children seeing that as awesome? Mom knows all this technology. She's so cool with these phones. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I love, and I'd love to hear what Emily thinks too, because I think, well, sometimes when I'm walking around the block, I'll see people who are walking their children in strollers and they're on the phone or they're doing something, and it's kind of like the child's just there. I think at all ages, well, I wanted to write down awful and awesome because I think it's really interesting as a side journey. I've been interested in wonder and awe, and we used to use awe as a term, AWE, before modern times. It used to be mostly used in places like the Christian Bible as a synonym for fear. Like you wouldn't say, if you heard say God is an awesome God, it would mean you're afraid. Like awe as a word itself had to do with feeling so small that something was above you and grand. And now states of awe, you can still have that religious feeling of awe being very minute, but it's not often used like we're going to get smited. It's like, oh, we're in charge of our, I believe we're in charge of our attention. We just don't always realize it. And technology can sometimes make us feel either very small or very grand. But how are we placing our attention, prioritizing the other humans around us and nature around us? Like, how do we actually feel like we're living moment by moment in a series of experiences? And again, this is going to sound like a beautiful creative digression, but my friend Brian, who works at Lego, he's in charge of Lego design, like the Lego design of digital. They're actually looking at some digital experiences. And he was saying the other day, do you know how many sensory details we have on our fingertips? Like our fingertips, and maybe Sho knows this as a musician, but our fingertips were designed for stimulation. Like we're meant to get information from our fingertips. And it's a recent theory that our nothing is being given. This is a piece of glass. It's not giving any type of haptic feedback for the most part. And we are so undernourished by our digital experiences that's part of the reason people scroll and scroll and scroll, because it's kind of like they're being given sips of something that might feel nourishing, but not enough. And so it's another hint of the algorithm that it's going to give you a little bit of what you like right now through the visuals and the cues and a little of the audio. But in terms of touch and tactile, it's so understimulating. I know. And Emily, you love soft things, and you were saying you love soft. And it's really interesting right now how the design of our digital systems really kind of malnourish us in so many ways that I'm encouraging more people to have diversity of flavors and don't forget what things feel like tree bark. When's the last time we actually did simple things like touched a tree, paid attention to the feeling of things? Yeah, we're in the most awkward time to be human. We're in a time period where people are hunching over phones and our body state is not the best in terms of posture and being. And I do think it's a period of time where we're going to be moving from this age into a spatial age of probably storytelling through objects and probably seeing language evolve. So one of the predictions is, also how do humans then make choices about how to evolve in ways that don't malnourish us and keep us depleted. I was going to have you sketch, but I suppose we could also sketch in our minds, because one of the exercises I love to do is ask people to draw, and if you feel like it, you can do it right now. Maybe we'll shorten it to a minute, but draw the personality of your relationship with technology. So if you feel like it's frazzled, you could draw a hairstyle that reflects that. If you feel like it's peaceful, you could draw that. But I'd love to just have a sketch time if you have anything nearby that you can write on that kind of reflects how you're feeling about technology these days. I also do this with my students at Stanford, and we draw our personas and then talk about it. So, a persona is an imaginary person. So, you could think about if this represents your relationship with tech, you can think about the colors you'd use, the feeling state, stories. If this person is listening to a soundtrack, are they listening to some kind of frenetic hard rock, or are they listening to classical music? What's your relationship with tech? How do you use it? If it had a persona, what would it be? I'll give you about a minute. And again, right now we're just gesture drawing, relationship with tech, um, not an artistic judgment. Just seeing what comes out on the page, thinking about your relationship. If you like, you can give this persona a name. Okay. Maybe 5 more seconds. We didn't spend a lot of time on this, but it's really interactive and creative. So if you have more you want to say or more you want to express, you can make a little note on the side and go back to it and embellish it and maybe share it on social media and tag Emily and me so we can share back. If anyone's really daring, let me stop share for a second. I'm just going
That
to
would be
invite
positive reinforcement of my self-esteem.
yeah, positive reinforcement. If you feel like it right now, feel free to hold yours up to the screen. If we want to have a couple people show us their drawings, that would be great because I love personas. One thing that persona can do is it's not me. It's not like Caitlin feeling shame. It's like, oh, this is my relationship with tech as a persona because it can sometimes just take us on a wild ride. Um, yeah. So thank you, Show, for being bold. I see. Would you like to narrate? Oh, great. We're all sharing ours at the same time. Emily, can you screenshot that? Are you able to?
I don't know.
Maybe I can. Hang on. Oh, this is okay. Um, who's willing to narrate at the same time? Because I see some that I'm very curious about. If you could share what's going on here. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I'll talk about mine. I just saw this um hand, frayed frayed fingers. It's kind of creepy actually. But yeah, I think there's those are like I think I must have been thinking about like the haptic touch and stuff and how uh we don't get that and there's something kind of incomplete with this hand and I don't know, it kind of looks like an octopus too and there's all the limbs. It's like you have all these uh, uh limbs and you can be doing so many things at the same time, like multitasking with technology. So it's kind of an octopus hand type thing. That's what I have
Those
going.
two eyes right there too. Those
Yeah,
eyes.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Very viscerally compelling.
yeah.
Thank you. Um, Monica, I saw a giving tree maybe. Are you willing to share just a little bit? Because I love that story.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm like, since I am probably one of the people here, maybe some others that like led life without a lot of technology for a long time. I think technology for me personally is very giving. As a matter of fact, I can give you an example. I had to write a letter of recommendation for a friend's child who's looking to get into graduate school at my alma mater. And I wrote this, I'm a pretty good writer. I wrote this lovely letter. And then I'm like, I'm just going to do what the kids do and stick it in Chat GPT. And it was like the same thing, but just better, a lot better. And I just, it felt great. At first, when I have this love-hate relationship with it, because of course my kids overuse it and it bothers me because I don't think it's going to teach them how to be good writers. But so that was like a giving thing for me. Like I felt like really good about this letter already, but then it just sounded even better. And it didn't change it didn't change the voice that it came from. So when I think about technology, for me, I do think it's like the giving tree. Um, I don't look at the negative aspects of the story of the giving tree, but I'm sure that that was part of it too. Because as I think about it for different generations, I think that it could become sour and we could focus too much on it, and there could be some negativity. So I love what you're doing. But for me, as an older person who relies on it enough, but it's not 100% of my life, and I could put my phone down and carry on conversations with people, I actually find it quite, I don't know, the word's not exhilarating, but you know, good.
Nice.
Feel a little
Yeah.
hypocritical with the kids. So,
And as far as the counseling field right now, and probably other fields too, there's such big advances as far as the AI kind of note support and also treatment planning that you can get very streamlined. So big jumps as far as certain kind of supports. There's pros and cons with it too, but and ethical considerations.
well, and I don't know if you are familiar with this, Caitlin, but there's an app called WeMind, but it's a website, and if you guys are familiar with EMDR, it is a Dutch company. It's in the Netherlands. I'm not 100% sure, but definitely not based in the US, that are running EMDR, so like movement, and they have AI practice clients as well. It's kind of a really interesting, and they're new. They're new, and I don't know if there's a way for I could maybe I know them only because the person I learned EMDR from is their consultant, their therapy consultant, basically. But it might be an area of interest that you can talk to them about, because it's using therapy not only in an it's AI format, but visual, and not just in note taking, but in a three-dimensional way. So might be something to think about, that if anybody's interested in that. WeMind is the name.
Yeah, I'm definitely really interested. I wrote it down, and maybe we can have a short list of both resources and things we're exploring, because I also had wanted to bring up, I don't know if people saw, but in psychology research, there was 2 days ago, I can share it later, but it's the effective use of ChatGPT. There was a study by MIT. The summary says, raising concerns about the effects of ChatGPT and downsides for mental health issues. We know this, intuitively you can, I think a lot of people know that there's a human to human, I'd almost call it intuitive, like the response. And so part of the book has a chapter, Digital Wellbeing has a chapter about AI being artificial intimacy, where may be great for therapeutic onboarding, but I was quoting some of Esther Perel's work, saying that it doesn't replace the human to human I thou empathetic care. And yet there's some bridge where, again, a lot of what I believe in is that philosophy of the middle way, where it's not going to be all good, all bad. It's oh, well, how, with this amazing power in our hands, how can we use AI more effectively? And right now we do have I think, and I have other people in the room, so I defer to the experts, but don't we have a shortage of qualified therapists to reach people? I would say. I think we have a shortage. And so people feeling as if there is some path to care that they, I think about those people that might not seek care because they don't feel like there's a way to onboard. But I'll share later the MIT research and some of the things coming across my feed so we all have access to it. I also wanted to acknowledge, as Jason just went off camera again, and maybe you'll hop back on, but we have Jason Marsh, who just joined us as well sometime recently. And so happy you're here. We're folding people in and having this impromptu sharing about our persona drawings of relationship with tech. So anyone else who feels like narrating your drawing or saying hi, or Jason, if you want to say a few words hi, that would be great. Roxanne's holding up your page too. I see it looks like it's hard to read a little bit, but I think at the bottom it says think and there's a drawing. And Roxanne, you're muted. Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. This is me in the middle, and I'm holding all of these like balloons, and the balloons, and they're balloons and bubbles. And my thought was, this is my technology as one. If I let go of one, that's fine. It's just it floats away. I'm not holding a judgment on that technology or me using that technology.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm on the earth. I'm grounded. My feet are on the earth. I'm enjoying being an earth person with the nature and the mountains and the water and the grass. And yet there's clouds, and that the technology symbolizing it's in the cloud. That's where we look to the sky. It's symbolization for the technology. And I better stop there.
Speaking the language.
I am looking for a word between awesome and awful. How about awe-numb? Awe-numb. Sometime I'm awe-numb. I'm still writing things down. Thank you.
Wow. Anyone else want to share? We have a last call before we move on.
So I didn't have much in the way of paper because I'm on the road, but the mouth is a representation to me of data, where sometimes technology is a smooth experience and sometimes it's jarring and crazy, and it's kind of these intersecting lines. And it's the spiral eyes is both a sense of kind of wonder and mind-blowing and unsettled at the same time, I guess. And then a little bit of a third eye. So it's kind of horrible, but it's also quick and just what came to mind. And yeah, I'm of course joining very late. I joined about 15 minutes ago, but just really, I think Caitlin is awesome, and ways that we can come up with digital representations. I'm a data visualization person in XR. And so ways that we can come up with codifying the parts of our human, whether that's Fitbit data or Apple Watch or whatever, and come up with ways that we can integrate that into ways that we can better express our own health and ourselves in the world. And if there's some way that Caitlin and I can do that together, that would be absolutely stunning. So we just started brainstorming some of that, and happy to take questions or discuss any way you'd like to go.
I love that you're here. Yeah. And hopefully we can preserve at least the last 5 minutes for people popcorn sharing and questions and all kinds of things. I'm always curious, but how many people are either wearing a wearable right now or use some type of Fitbit, Apple Watch, something? Great. And Emily wrote in the chat, I love my Aura rings. So if you have something that you love, not product placement, just saying this works for me. I will hold up 2 chapters in the book, Wellbeing through music, the heart is a digital kick drum, followed by Wellbeing through wearables and movement. Part of this book was not attached to any, because I quickly just kind of touched in, and I'm like, I'm not going to mention a lot of specific products. Those are always evolving. But categorically, what I was looking at is the human relationship And I got into some studies and some research that show people's relationship with their wearables, because we use tools in different ways. And people who love analogies like I do, we don't say the rake raked the lawn. We say, I raked the lawn. And when you use something and it's giving you feedback and you're using it to do something, there are lots of psychological studies that say that that becomes an extension of you. Like your wearable is a form of you. And so future design is going to make these wearables more invisible. Maybe there'll be some smart technology in fabric that's going to give us biofeedback and change their heating systems according to our skin. Some people are already using smart mattresses that change their temperature over the course of an evening to improve both circulation and people's well-being. And one of my side passions, and I share that with this group too, and I'm really curious, is about longevity, not just as, oh, let's increase our, health span over lifespan, but also how are we meeting needs of groups that used to be not even part of the medical studies. Like I discovered there were whole groups of women approaching things like perimenopause, menopause. They weren't included in some of these studies. And then what used to be jokes about hot flashes has become a whole new movement of people taking back power over their well-being through the help of digital, helping more people not just understand your bodies, but like how can the body state and technology be more responsive to support us as our lifespan is getting longer, and people want to feel like they're included in the system. So everything from medical studies, I'm about to go to a conference called Next Med, which is really wonderful and has people from Scripps and people from Harvard. And, I'm curious learner who's speaking there and also learning. And I mention all of this because I see the whole wearables, digital devices, and as Jason was saying, data sets that we can see in swarms and get involved in as ways to feel more agency and not just like we're objects in the medical system. So you can tell I get so passionate about this, and we have about half an hour left in our session. So what I'm thinking is if this group wants to ride the ride, let's play a game where everybody puts in the chat one topic that you wouldn't want to leave without, because because I have a lot of things in the grab bag, and if there are things that you would feel incomplete if we didn't touch on before the session closes, this can always be like an appetizer. I know the host very well. Who knows, maybe she will invite me back for a part 2 sometime in the future. But I want to make sure I meet this moment, and I'll share a few more of what I brought. So I do have some notes on Roxanne. Your point is definitely overuse of tech causing tech stress. Yes. So we can address that. And so I'll share a few more slides, and then I'll go to the chat and make sure we have kind of an ask me anything moment where I'm addressing these questions in the chat. And we will leave a mindful 5 minutes at the end. We were intending to go 90 minutes. So that means we have 25 minutes more if people are able to stay. And Emily, is there anything else as I time box this that you would need to feel complete? If you want to say that or put that in the chat.
I think this is a good kind of flow to go in this direction and incorporate the questions as people put those in. Mm-hmm.
Great. So before I get to the questions and answering them in the chat, as you're thinking about what you would hate to not have addressed, just want to mention that the book that came out is, I'm a long distance type of thinker, runner person. So it's not meant to be a flash in the pan. A lot of the book topics in digital well-being are evergreen in the way that they're addressing technology. So, like I was saying, I keep thinking about design strategies and ways that we can be more engaged, have artistic, creative ways that people can approach technology that, bring this inner world to life. So I'm just mentioning some of the ways that I've used it as avenues. And then I see myself as facilitating. I'm about to offer a course from April to May, um, like a masterclass that's on digital well-being, where once a week people can meet just like this and then have opportunities to play with some of the technology and get hands-on, and also talk about leadership methods that we're bringing to each of our work applications. So some of what I'm doing is theoretical, and then part of it's very practical. So if you're coming tonight and you say, oh, we're talking about virtual reality, that's totally different for me. It's different for a lot of people. I see virtual reality as one of the future ways we're going to connect. But right now, it's sort of the muddy middle where some people don't have access to headsets. They might think of this as sort of exotic. If you've been in those worlds, then you know that they can be spaces of wonder when they're designed really well. So I just bring that up tonight because all of these S's are qualities that I prioritize when I'm looking at spatial technology. And if I'm talking to each of us about spatial tech and social and something that's sensory and somatic, all I mean is that digital used to mean phones and 2D connection and Zoom screens. But pretty soon, the next generation, and even now, we're doing things in ways that are object oriented. We exist as 3D creatures, so eventually, we're probably going to be world building in ways where our glasses will be more and more infused with smart technology. We're going to have a way of interacting in the future that's a little bit different, and it's not so. We can think about it as very exotic, or we can think, oh, storytelling has always kind of been immersive, back to the time of cave paintings. It's just in this most recent era of digital, we've moved to phones and 2D media, but we were kind of designed as 3D creatures meant to embody technology. So even when Monet painted the water lilies, I like to give this example because it's kind of like he was the first dome creator. Aside from cave paintings, Monet was so moved by the trauma of the First World War that he said, I need to make an antidote to this. He started painting water lilies and imagined them in a room where people could sit in the center and feel like they were in the middle of the water lilies. And then he sold it to Paris to the gallery L'Orangerie. And he said, it has to be in this room. He designed the room himself. He never saw the room created. He passed away before people came to experience it. So, just imagine sitting surrounded by the water lilies. And now, thank you, Show, for bringing the Aurora Borealis. When I'm in virtual reality, I'm designing worlds with that immersion. And sometimes I pick a skybox. I pick the sky to be the Northern Lights because I want to give people goosebumps. I want people to come in and feel that sense of awe where they drop out of anxiety and they go into a state of wonder. And, maybe it's not, as Roxanne said, maybe it's not just awful to awesome. Maybe there's an awe numb in the middle where we can just be neutral. It's a different layered approach to future tech where I think we're going to have to go back to our animal bodies first. And, maybe it's a byproduct of the pandemic. It moved so many people into digital so fast. We were all starting to work from home, but did we actually show up in our body stack? Or did we learn to communicate from the neck up and be like, okay, I am a box in a series of squares? So some of this, I think, is just peeling back the layers and saying, oh, okay, if my primary layer is physical, what kind of self-care do I need? How do I take care of securing my own safety belt so I can help other people? and not do that reflexively with shame, but do that with integrity, saying, I'm in alignment, and then I'm going to layer on. So when I go to design a course, I'm showing you the back end. When I'm teaching at Stanford, I'm saying digital well-being is not going to be cookie cutter check boxes like I only use digital 2 hours a day. I do some things that are helpful, and I tell some students, like, let's try this out, because you're the experiment. Like, your personal life experience is going to be part of the design of digital well-being for you, which doesn't mean anything goes. It means there are certain behavioral change and certain tips. But when we look up to kind of this invitation to play, it means if something doesn't feel good to you, it might not be working for you. If it works for one person, it doesn't mean it works for everybody, but there are habits that can help. So, the book is one of the tools and the resources that we use. And I use, the book and things like the masterclass I'm about to teach. But this is a page from my journal, and I brought it today because I just thought this is also addressing Roxanne's question in the chat. Like, these are some of the things that I do, and some of the things that, we've found through experimentation and through research. A lot of these little tips add up. Like, what would it mean if we all took maybe 2 or 3 of these tips and applied them in different ways, and then saw how, digital well-being and just well-being in general are not that far apart. Digital is one means, but setting boundaries, like right now, we can infuse things that make apps on phone monochrome, and that means we're not responding as much to the colors. I'm friends with a group called ClearSpace, and ClearSpace is a great application where you start with your intention for how much you want to use social media. And students have started to use it at Stanford, and it's an alignment of their intention with their attention. And ClearSpace just reminds you, oh, you set your intention to only use Instagram, 30 minutes a day. Hey, you hit 30 minutes, and then you get to decide if you want to override it, but it's a reminder, like a speed bump. Sometimes all people need is a speed bump. I do a lot.
Is it an intention app, like all their intentions for the day sort of thing?
You decide what apps you want to give it access to, and then it's time tracking your use of them. So it's mostly used for social media. You could link it to everything from Instagram, Facebook. You could track your use of. I've used it for Discord. It's mostly just going to give you some cues, and when you log into any of those apps, it takes you to ClearSpace first, and they actually give you a cue to take a breath and exhale, and then you start using it, and it's like a little mindfulness hook. And their founder, Royce Brannig, said that he thinks that social media use and carrying your phone around and bringing it places like dinner is going to be like smoking. It'll be seen as a bad habit that people socially won't allow. So so he's definitely changing the public view of using the phone. And I'm kind of laughing to myself, because if you want to write down Common Sense Media and Will Ferrell has done a bunch of ads for Common Sense Media that are super funny about using the phone at dinner. And it is good to give ourselves grace and have a little bit of humor about this.
I shouldn't share this, but it's something to think about. I mean, my son is almost 3, and he asks, like, Dad has his phone. He knows my phone. He knows Dad's phone. And then he was like, "Where's my phone? I need a phone." So he has a phone. He puts it,
No.
with our phones. He feels like he needs it, right? And what is that type of thing? We also have a phone box where I'm trying to put my phone in to kind of not have it, because that really made me sad. So, but I mean, we're modeling that, yeah, a bit.
Yeah. it's an early intervention. I know I'm cringing. It's hard because we're modeling and what is that behavior? Or, sometimes students and I will have a debate, if we didn't take a picture, would that moment still exist? I'm very interested in time and what the role is of nostalgia these days, because it's the unscripted moments that are undocumented. And I'm finding a trend shift that's kind of promising, that students used to say, and I keep going back to Gen Z, Gen A, but I find it fascinating. Used to say, oh, I want to be an influencer or someone on social media. And now they say, I don't even want things documented. I just want data dignity. Like, what does it mean to have access to our data? So I'm part of more groups that are interested in ethics and in what we call biometric psychography. Like how in the future are our movements and our body states going to be tracked? How's the data going to be stored? That could be really powerful and wonderful. And I think there's a dignity factor there. Jaron Lanier talks about that a lot. So it's an invitation to kind of get ahead of the wave and script out ways that it can be empowering. I'm an optimist. I'm an optimist and a realist. So this is a little tool. Anyone who feels like they want to take a screenshot, or I can share this later. This is something when I start a course with digital well-being, I frame the course norms and collective norms. So any group, any age, how do we increase part of the digital well-being has so many layers and so many different avenues that mediation of online groups. You can imagine if people are embodying avatars, it could easily just be lowest common denominator and people just but yet each avatar is a human. Each avatar, if they're not an NPC, they're a human that is fully emotional and even more sometimes supple and vulnerable. So
what is an NPC for people that don't know?
Oh, a non-playable character. So something, sorry. So if you're in a game and let's say there's just a responsive agent, or in the future, we might have more agents that are AI. And I still believe you should be nice to them. But as we're thinking about ethical treatment of other humans and systems, it's going to become a thing more and more like, is this a real human? And what is my role of engagement? So I'm always saying to people, well, we're in a community together. Like, what are we embodying? And in a way, I get ahead of that behavior where I would say it's more disruptive, because I want each person to feel like it's not me playing the role of policing as much as like, if we're in digital communities, then they must be, in my mind, collaborative and really cooperative. And this is part of the side issue where I think more and more people are going to say, well, how am I a human in the loop? How do I want to engage and not just be in this fear factor state of trust, of relational trust, and not trusting? And I see Monica nodding, because it's like, yeah, you can see the more and more we have the ability, and we could have another course about AI and the ability to to kind of masquerade as human and gain trust. We don't want people to just be cynical, but what's a way that we can be critical in the system and also be empathetic? So this is something that I start courses with. And I also have, let's say, if we have a weekly gathering together, then in between, there's lots of reflection and there's lots of journaling and there's lots of sharing of materials. So I'm sharing the back end of digital well-being, because I think there are applications that we could all use as we're facilitating for other people, that they feel like there's a pulse point, there's some kind of sharing that's happening that's not just extractive and performative. And I've heard from other teachers that some of the future of education, there's a shift happening right now as more people are using digital and using applications like ChatGPT. I see it as an invitation to change the way that we model assessment, because it's always been kind of a push, right, to have more self-assessment models and more that's human and reflective. So I'm trying to meet this moment and say, well, how do we invite the digital and AI is not going away, and yet we're more animated, we're more creative and playful. I'd love to hear about a future where humans have so much abundance. Let's hope that it's distributed better, because we represent biological nature, and right now we're able to use more that's coming in technology. We have to be intentional about it, though. So I'm in the system to bring that up with as much leadership as I can. Let me just pause there, because I feel myself
Intentional creativity.
yes,
intentional creativity. Yeah.
intentional creativity in community. And this would be a great slide to pause on, because this would be like whether I'm teaching a class or whether I'm building an app or whether I'm facilitating something in community. These are the goals underneath. Like, okay, how can we have more safe spaces to take risks and places that are encouraging? And humans want to grow. A lot of how we grow is through play. Yeah. And so let me pause. Does this resonate, though? Because of course I'm talking with you and not it's just such an important time to ask some big questions. Let's see. Yeah, I'm loving this. I'm loving reading in the chat your question. Okay. Whoa, Emily. Should I start at the end and then go earlier?
I thought it needed to be said, because I think counselors may be grouped in there, right? So what does that mean? It kind of gives you this fear process, and I don't want to be fearful. I want to be embracing of AI and new changes. And just, you don't have to say yes or no, but just any comment related to that. I thought I would bring that up.
Well, I was watching a documentary last night that came out in 2010 called Waiting for Superman. Has anyone seen it? It's about the American school system, and it was created in 2010, back when they were going through some reforms in Washington, D.C., and there was a new person in charge of education. And I was thinking about education models. It's a good documentary called Waiting for Superman, and it was about public school systems. And Bill Gates was featured there because I think he was giving a lot of funding to this documentary. And gosh, doctors, teachers, humans won't be needed for most things. I think that the role of doctors, teachers, humans, kind of like what I was just mentioning with assessment, I think it's going to shift. And it makes me want to go into, let me see if I have, if you don't mind that I'm skipping forward in slides. I wanted to talk a little bit in the session about the hero's journey and about how I feel like more people are going to need to play the role of mentoring for other people instead of assessment models. Again, the future of library science is going to be really interesting because that's data science. And again, yeah, okay. So I think in the future, I'd love to just have a meeting with Bill and say, Bill, what do you mean by that? My sister Emily wants to know, are we really going to get rid of these roles and no one's needed? I think that more need is going to be on this flow model that is also in the book, but I was thinking about culture change and how I think more dignity is going to be important, because we're going to have so many systems that computers help us. AI is going to help automate, but also make things more efficient. So if people are able to be critical, I think critical thinking skills are going to be so important. They already are, but how are we teaching rhetoric? Is rhetoric taught? Is ethics taught? So really, I'm looking to have more experiences where I could bring in this culture model where if everybody felt like they had dignity in a system and felt recognized, then they'd have more creative freedom. Then they'd have invention of really wonderful ideas. And ideas need to have containers where they can take some kind of action. So this might seem totally theoretical, but in my mind, it's applicable to everything from organization change. If there's more agency, then people can cycle forward and have more progress. So I think the future is going to have this is a model that I use when I'm doing any kind of virtual reality guiding across to a different threshold. I think people are going to need to feel confident with new technology and need to have mentoring to help them cross thresholds into new tech. Yeah, so I would say to Bill that sounds very fear factor for people to think that they're just being replaced. And I think all ages are going to be adaptive and say, some of the question now is going to be, what are we going to do with more of our time that gets to be freed up, hopefully, to have better well-being and better care models for each other. So that's how I would address it as a, I love this Mobius strip. It's just going to be like a different kind of, unfortunately, I've heard from a lot of people that they think it's going to get worse before it gets better in terms of system change, because we're in like a seismic shift of people seeing what it means to be in societies that care for each other. But I think that's why we need to, keep telling the stories about the things that do work really well so that people understand that all of it is not fear factor. And some of the people that are the loudest voices are kind of sharing stories about doom, and not the game. I love Doom. I love John Carmack and John Romano. But yeah, the creator consumer experience model is changing.
Does it relate to Show's question, Caitlin? How can we fight for better design in tech?
Oh, definitely. I think it relates to Show's question because, yeah, design in tech, I would say this kinesthetic connection that we started with, like, what does it mean humans feel? Right now, AI and robots, thank goodness, don't feel yet. And so this design in tech, if we prioritize feeling, give more people senses of agency. I just think the competition framework for society that had happened for the past 200 years needs to shift into collaboration mode. And it's, to me, it's philosophical, but it's also kind of like survival friendly. Like it looks at things from more of a long view, and that's why I'm saying to people like Mo Gadot that I want to be part of those type of movements. And I think after this, we should just share resources with this group, because I believe that the smartest person in the room is the room. And so it's like, we have a lot of people here who are experts in different areas and can help each other. I have no closing because I knew I came with more than we would have time for. So I have a lot of resources, happy to share them. And of course, a whole section that talks about emotion. Emily and I did want to close. This is me sketching.
I really like that one, by the way, because it's different than the circle. Usually I give circle with, yes, more. Well, actually, this is a lot nicer than the usual circle. I like this. If you want to
With
send
a picture of the Berlin Wall. Emily and I wanted to close, and I do believe in being on time, especially for the East Coasters that are waiting to have dinner. I would never stand between you and dinner. But there's so much here. I'll share a slide later. I've been thinking about neurochemicals and well-being, what we can do that's good and not addictive, that can help dopamine, help serotonin, help oxytocin and endorphins, and laughter is one of those, exercise. So if you don't mind, that would be like among some of the takeaways, because I'm doing the research on the back end so I can vet it. And part of my goal is to bring all of this creatively to light. And I see myself as a guide on the side where the person is the authority of their experience. But I wanted to close and just thank everybody for coming. And if you don't mind, leaving your name and how you're feeling now. We wanted to do kind of a loose comparison. We'd welcome people and say, just share how you're feeling. And I'd love to hear how you're feeling right now as you leave. And anyone who feels curious or like you're inspired to stay connected, discover more, these are some of my ways that we can keep in touch. I'll just copy those and put them right in the chat. I am teaching a 4-week course, April to May. And I do a lot in intersectional, like whether it's physical, digital, spatial, it's all like that Matryoshka doll, super hungry. Yeah, inspired, curious. Yeah, just thanks everybody for coming. Emily, did you want to say anything in closing? Just thank you immensely. I've been looking
Yes,
forward to
just thank you for coming. And I feel like very expansive. There's so much I need to think about after this too, like different parts of it. I'm glad we did tape it so I can go back and I will share. We'll talk about it more. Thank you all.
Yeah. And for
Thank
everyone
you.
asking, thank you. Asking the big questions, you're definitely not alone. Big things are happening and everybody's invited to this. I'm super grateful for what people have shared tonight. And if you feel like lingering, I'll be in the room for an extra few minutes if you want to share a little more about you or ask each other questions. Thank you. Thank you.